Hello everyone, Dan 14th Prime here. I want to do a video share out today with you guys on the Prime 1 Studios Knightfall Batman statue here. What I want to do is talk a bit about the comic book inspiration for this awesome piece. If you haven't seen my unboxing video, check the card up here in the corner. Be sure to go check that out. You'll see all the assembly, lots of good close-ups, and the visual tour of putting this piece together. And again, here I want to talk about where it's coming from and the history in the comic book context, because though there are lots of huge Batman fans out there, myself included, maybe some of you haven't picked this story up because it's from a specific point in time in the 90s, or you see a Batman looking like this statue here and just don't know what the hell that's all about, so don't get into it. And I think this storyline is a bit underread and therefore underappreciated within the Batman community. So I want to bridge that gap a bit for you here today and really just plant some seeds to encourage you to pick up the story yourself and read it. So this will be a bit of a podcast type video, though I'll be rolling lots of cool pics of the statue, which you can take a look at while you listen. So the Knightfall storyline, which is really kind of like 3 books, Knightfall, Night Quest, and Night's End. These books are collected in 3 volumes of omnibus, so very epic story. But it begins with a Bruce Wayne that's working very hard, pushing himself to the limit. He's coming off of the wake of Jason Todd's death as Robin. He's got the new Tim Drake there, but he's really trying to keep everyone around him safe, not getting them involved in crime fighting and exposing them to risk. And Bruce is pushing himself really hard, so he's just getting exhausted. He's wearing himself out. And frankly, here, Reader's Tip, Volume 1 of the Omnibus, like 200 pages, a bit gratuitous on the front end of this. So you could skip ahead because the stories just go on and on to make this simple point. And then when we get to the introduction of Bane, which is an awesome read, classic Bane, a man of perfection of both mind and body, breaking out of prison, decides he wants to control Gotham, right? Be its new underworld boss. And to do that, he thinks, well, I have to take out Batman to be successful for that in the long run. And he's right. So he then develops a strategy, which just plays on those first same 200 pages, where he's like, well, I'm going to wear Batman out before I face him. I'm going to run through a gauntlet of every enemy and rogue he's ever faced before I then go approach Batman to break him. So Bane breaks everyone out of Arkham Asylum, sends them after Batman in one way or another, and Batman's just trying to round all these people up. He's running like hell. He's getting exhausted. And there's lots of cool things that occur in that, like Riddler on Venom. Those are some of the cool things I'll leave you to pick up the book and check out for yourself. But suffice to say, through all of this, Batman just continues to be exhausted and is, at his breaking point. I will say, concurrent with all this, and what you'll want to do is pick up Sword of Azrael trade paperback volume 1, because one thing the Omni doesn't do is get you a good introduction to John Paul Valley, who is to be Azrael in the future Batman. So that light read, we'll see how he gets more properly sort of engaged with Bruce Wayne and Tim Drake. I believe he's like an employee at one of Bruce's businesses or a university or something. I can't recall exactly. But that's how they make their acquaintances, and Bruce sees a lot of potential with John Paul Valley. So while Bruce is doing all this, what he's having Robin do is actually train up JPV. So Robin and JPV are out on the town, doing the rounds, getting some action in, getting some work in. And John Paul Valley is high potential. I mean, he looks like a stud. He's already above where Robin's at. And that's what Bruce sees, and that's what he's trying to groom and develop in him. And the reason behind why JPV has so much just God-given potential is because he's been programmed, as they say, in the comic. So his dad was Azrael, and his dad before him. So there's this long family line of the men being Azrael from the Order of the Knights of St. Dumas. And this is their destiny generation after generation. And what the father has done to JPV is basically been hypnotizing him his whole life since he was a baby. That is kind of injecting the program into him so that he will instinctively be, just a great fighter and a very capable, dangerous person when it comes to, fighting crime, protecting justice, all of that stuff that Azrael would be doing, avenging the innocent, etc. So come back to the Bane storyline. Now that Batman is exhausted after running Bane's gauntlet, Bane, I believe, figures out Bruce Wayne is Batman because Bane basically goes and meets him by the grandfather clock in Wayne Manor. So he walks right in to finish the job. Of course, Bruce is surprised, but he runs down the cave, throws on the suit, and comes back upstairs to Rumble. And they stumble down the stairs into the Bat Cave, but, Bane, I think, handles him pretty easily, pretty well, and breaks his back, right? Just sort of leaves him there, more or less for dead, or effectively dead, and that he will never be Batman again, to challenge Bane in his reign as the leader of Gotham now in the underworld. So Bane goes and does his thing and continues, pursues to just take over Gotham as he does and starts to rule it. And as all this is occurring, Bruce needs a succession plan. It's a bit earlier than anticipated, so there's no obvious choice. I mean, Tim Drake is not going to be Batman ever. Jason Todd is dead. And then Dick Grayson, of course, is off doing his Nightwing thing. And Bruce doesn't want to approach Dick because he feels like maybe he would have been keeping him too much under his thumb. He wants Dick to be able to grow, be a man, and do his own thing. So that leaves Bruce to make the Hail Mary call, to call up from single A ball all the way up to the big leagues, John Paul Valley, to take on the Cow and be Batman. So that is the first transition of JPV as Batman, and he dons the cape and cowl in uniform exactly as Bruce Wayne did. No change to the uniform yet. What happens at this point in the story, Bruce, now wheelchair bound, starts to live his normal life. He has a therapist who he's seeing to sort of, just reconcile this big change in his life. That he's now a regular guy, basically, right? And oh, by the way, wheelchair bound. And his therapist, I believe Cassandra, let's go with Chandra, African American woman, he falls in love with her. And he starts to get pretty content with sort of being the normal guy in love with the woman of his dreams, the love of his life type thing. So while he's off doing that, JPV, goes to work as Batman. Keeps all those same connections, Robin by his side, sorta. Jim Gordon there. But really, JPV starts to go his own way. He's not as mentally skilled as Bruce Wayne, so he relies heavily on the Bat computer for insight and analytics and sort of detective work. But kind of in the battlefield, the dude is straight up a wrecking machine. Just the programming, and he's merciless, right? So he'll come down to the level of the bad guys, the rogues, and just show no mercy, hold no higher principles, etc. So he starts to just clean up Gotham in a big, big way because of his style. It's just effective. And the more he gets into this, the more the programming of Azrael really starts to take hold of him. And mind you, he's still young. He's not the master expert. He's on a learning curve himself. And as he continues to develop as the Batman that he wants to be and learn from his experiences as he's fighting all these different rogues and has some, failures or learnings in terms of how things could have been better, he starts to evolve the Batsuit. It's just piece by piece over the whole run. I won't get the order right because I'm doing all of this off memory. But for example, one of the first things he does is put on the claws, right? What obvious thing to do rather than just fight hand-to-hand combat? Hey, I'm going to put knives on my hands and just slash you down. One of the other things he does is put on gauntlets, big robotic armored gauntlets. And again, it's for practicality. It's rather than throw a batarang at someone, I'm going to shoot a batarang machine gun at you and just cut you down with 5 or 6 batarangs. That's what he has one of them do in maybe his left arm. I won't get the arms right. And the other one, he puts a flamethrower. So he's I'm going to cut you and then burn you down. And he builds all this because even though he's not a great detective, he does have this programming in his mind from the Knights of St. Dumas on how to make these medieval type weapons. So after many of these battles, he captures learnings and goes back to the suit and redesigns it in this medieval way. One of the other things he does is change the whole neck collar piece, that really crazy thing that gives all that flair to his shoulders. And he puts a big spotlight in there that can blind people or shine a bat signal. And he continues. And one of the last couple things he does is, of course, he puts on the armored knight helmet, which the exclusive version of the statue has. And then he actually trades out the cape for an armored set of wings almost, which unfortunately the exclusive version of this statue does not have. It would have been cool to incorporate that in some way. So in his end state, which we don't see here in these pictures, he's full on knight, armor helmet, armor wings, armor gauntlets. He's like a tank. I mean, the guy is impenetrable and hauling some serious firepower and weapons at all these rogues and all these bad guys around Gotham, and he's showing no mercy. I mean, he will just decimate even like the common mugging criminal and crush that guy just as much as he might someone way more dangerous. So this is Azrael. This is who he is. This is why he looks the way he does here in this statue. And the way he looks precedes his reputation, because the programming made him merciless. It made him violent. It made him in disregard for human life, which was a big, big thing that Bruce Wayne saw that was really separating him from being worthy of having the Batman cowl. And I remember one of the examples of that was, I believe, JPV with the choice to go save a hostage that he knew a criminal had somewhere in trouble in some way, shape, or form, had captured, or go hunt that criminal down and make him pay. He chose the latter, to go get vengeance and go get revenge and bring in the bad guy. And as a result of that, the hostage ended up dying. So in that example, he didn't kill someone directly, but he allowed innocent people to die. And Bruce kind of saw that as just as bad, because it wasn't the right choice. And somewhere in here, of course, amongst all of JPV's warring with Gotham criminals and trying to clean it up, he wanted Bane, right? That's the big boss. That's the head honcho. That's the guy he needs to bring down to get control back of Gotham. And in his mind, keep it safe by any means necessary. So JPV does eventually find him. They find each other on the rooftops, where I myself so often bump into people that I know or I'm looking for. And they start to go to war, right? They start to go to battle. And I can't remember yet, for a few panels, a few pages maybe even, it's a good fight. But this thing turns heavily in favor of John Paul Valley and everything he's known for, the merciless approach, the brutality, all the weapons. He just turns all that loose on Bane. And really, it turns in such a way that Bane is just straight out afraid. I mean, he's getting decimated. He's getting thrashed. He's getting his ass handed to him. And JPV does not let up. He's dicing him up with his hands. He's cutting him down with the Batarang gauntlet gun. And Bane is like afraid. I do remember reading that. It's like the guy was just straight up being reduced to like every other common criminal in Gotham, afraid of this Batman. Because you run into JPV, it could be your last day on Earth. You run into Bruce Wayne, you're just going to jail or Arkham Asylum. And Bane, in the throes of that battle, came to realize that fear himself, and was ultimately captured by John Paul Valley. So as a result of seeing all of that happening, and though I will say JPV was probably the most effective Batman ever, because I do remember like this stat in the book that said crime was down 42%, while JPV was on reign as Batman. But the means and the methods didn't suit Bruce. But the guy's in a wheelchair, so what the hell is he going to do against JPV? Well, remember his girlfriend, Chandra, I believe, the love of his life at the time. She has some special, psychic, let's call them, paranormal, some sort of special healing abilities, actually. And another sub-story here that while Bruce was sort of running around, a man from Chandra's past who was an orphan, and she had an orphan stepbrother, let's say, who could actually amplify and reverse her powers, which basically meant rather than heal, he could hurt people, and amplifying it being he could do it at remote distance. So he could basically kill people through working with Chandra. He could partner with her and kill people just by thinking about them, basically thinking about their name and who they were. That guy actually used Chandra and took a shot at Bruce Wayne. But of course, Bruce did not die, and he didn't die because he identifies himself so much so as Batman. But through some of that storyline, what ends up happening is Chandra heals Bruce, actually. So Bruce Wayne, coming back from the broken back, was actually like a paranormal, telekinetic, special power, however you want to describe it. That sort of fixed the spine. And I can't remember whatever happened exactly to Chandra, but she ended up just going like bat nuts. Just totally insane. And Bruce ended up checking her into the Arkham Asylum, I believe, and regrettably just having to leave her there because she was straight up baked, just out of it. But now Bruce can walk again, and he's going to do something about the Batman in John Paul Valley. So he goes back to Gotham to confront JPV and take back the cowl. Of course, JPV has zero interest in that. He believes himself to be the superior Batman, doing what Bruce could never do, never had the will to do. But of course, Bruce sees it differently, and he's going to get his Cal back. So they're going at it, of course, and Bruce is in no condition and is in no match. He is no match for John Paul Valley, the tank wrecking machine that he has become, just fully focused through the programming, just to crush stuff. But Bruce does end up outwitting him, takes him through some caverns of the Bat Cave, of increasingly just getting smaller and smaller caverns and caves. JPV has to shed the armor to follow him. He's just so determined to get Bruce. He just keeps pursuing and dropping all of his armor and all of the gadgetry. But actually, eventually gets stuck. He gets stuck in the cavern. It's above the shaft where Bruce fell down as a boy. Takes the shaft cover off. Bright light shines down and sort of wakes up JPV. He snaps out of it. He snaps out of the programming. And he becomes his usual well-demeanored self. I mean, JPV was always sort of like a maybe almost shy, low-key, low-demeanor type guy when he's not juiced up on the program. So with JPV back to himself, Bruce is, of course, able to reason with him and tell him it's over, right? And he's back to be the Batman. And that is effectively the end of John Paul Valley as the Batman. Did skip over one little detail somewhere late in that storyline, the bat suit that you see here in this statue, again, with the armored up wings, does turn red. He's in a fire or something like that, and the whole suit goes red. That's one of the last few issues and iterations of the suit, really just a color change versus the traditional blue color scheme. So again, Bruce is back now, but he's not ready to be Batman. He's really himself, not fully capable mentally or physically. He needs to retrain, right? Because whatever he's been gone, whatever it is, a year or something. So now he approaches, he builds up his stomach and sees the right thing to do all along, of course, was to approach Dick Grayson to carry the cowl while Bruce can't. Of course, Dick is happy to this whole time. He doesn't understand why Bruce didn't ask him to begin with. Well, he understands because I believe Robin explained to him. But of course, Dick would do anything for Bruce. So he says yes. He picks up the cape and cowl and he gets to work and working with Tim Drake, sort of dynamic duo back in the house. Those two trying to help clean up Gotham and get things back right. And while Dick is holding it down, Bruce goes out to basically retrain, right? He finds Lady Shiva, the killer assassin, to run through all of her trials. And he accomplishes that. I believe the last one actually being that he has to show Lady Shiva that he'd kill someone. Of course he doesn't, but he makes her believe that he did. So she sort of graduates him, which for whatever reason he feels like he needs to make sure that he's convinced himself that he's ready to come back. And of course he does then come back to return to Batman. And the significance of the end really is that you have here a realization by Bruce that what he was doing at the beginning of the story, pushing everyone away, trying to go about it alone, was wrong. It's not the right way. People depend on him. It's okay for him to depend on others. And you start to see the beginning of the modern day thinking of the Bat family. So he embraces more the idea of Robin being there, Tim Drake. He embraces the idea of Dick Grayson as Nightwing, continuing to be involved and working with him. So just another very important plot point we think about, what's echoed on for 30 plus years from now. This story, as you can see, had just many, many significant events in it. Aside from those first 200 pages of Volume 1, it's a pleasure to read. It's a real page turner. You'll get through them quickly. And I think the story, the plot, no, it doesn't have the most amazing writers. No, it doesn't have the most amazing artists. But as a comprehensive read and run, it is towards the top of being one of the most epic Batman plot lines ever. Right? It's just below that top tier, but definitely a must read if you're a big Batman fan. So that's it, guys. Just wanted to share some context because, again, I think it's underread. People don't understand what this Knightfall Batman is. So want to do a share out. Hope it's all right. It's probably not perfect. I'm doing it top of mind, quite frankly, and it's been a couple years since I've read those Omnis. But I hope I did it some justice, gave you a good sense of what it was about, and again, hopefully encouraged you to go pick up Volume 1 and start to give it a try. And if you go in a link down in the description below, you'll find my Amazon page. I've got a section out there for what I call Batman book stands read, something like that, where I try to put out there all the books in the exact same format that I myself have read them. It's not all because that's difficult, but whatever. It's probably 80% of the Batman stuff. ex-Justice League, Crisis Events, and stuff like that. Just kind of more pure Batman titled stuff. So check that out. You'll find lots of good reads out there, and these 3 books in particular. And I always recall seeing them at pretty good prices, but of course, eBay's another route you can go, depending on if you want new, used, whatever. You might pay between $50 to $75 a book. Link down in the description below for eBay as well. And again, any shopping you do those links, just supports the channel at no cost to you. So I do appreciate it. Thanks very much for that. So it's a third and final video to this statue. I hope to actually just do a review and share some thoughts on the piece itself the next couple days, because I'm very excited to have this statue. I think it's just fantastic work, comic book inspired, but frankly, Prime 1 taking it to a level that we never saw in the comic book art, because Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane and those types of guys were working for Marvel at the time. So what Prime 1 has done for us here is like the awesomest Knightfall Batman John Paul Valley that I've ever seen. All right, guys, thanks for checking in on this video share out, allowing me to drop a little bit of hopefully roughly right Batman knowledge from the roughly probably 15,000 or so pages of Batman titled books that I've read. So happy to share that with you, and I will see you next time.